Good to see you, miss.
You too, mister.
The unforgiving Texas sun scorched the wooden platform of Red Creek Station as a young cowboy named Cole Tanner leaned against a hitching post, watching his older brother Emmett prepare to meet the woman who had answered their matrimonial advertisement. Clara stepped off the train clutching a worn carpet bag, her hopeful eyes scanning the sparse crowd for the man whose letters had promised her a secure and gentle life far from the crowded eastern cities she had left behind. Emmett strode forward with the swagger of a man who had never known real hunger, looked Clara up and down with undisguised disdain, and announced in a voice loud enough to silence the station that she was far too plain for his taste. Cole's stomach twisted into a knot as he saw the light drain from Clara's face, replaced by a trembling dignity that somehow held her upright, even as a few bystanders shuffled their boots in awkward sympathy. Without a backward glance, Emmett mounted his horse and rode toward the saloon, leaving a shattered young woman standing on the platform like a forgotten piece of luggage that no one had come to claim. But what Cole did next would bind their fates in a way no one in that dusty town could have foreseen, turning a moment of shame into the cornerstone of an extraordinary life together. Cole removed his hat, walked slowly toward Clara, and in a voice steadier than he felt, offered her a simple choice that would alter everything. She could come home with him to the modest ranch he owned at the edge of the creek. Clara lifted her chin, studied the honesty carved into Cole's sun-weathered face, and after a long breath that seemed to gather every shattered expectation, she nodded once and placed her small hand in his calloused palm. They rode in near silence along a dusty trail bordered by mesquite and wild sage, and though neither spoke much, the weight of Emmett's cruelty began to lift with every hoofbeat that carried them away from the station. Cole's ranch house was a humble two-room cabin with a stone fireplace and a porch that groaned under the weight of 1,000 sunsets, but he had scrubbed it clean the night before out of a brotherly hope that now felt painfully naive. That evening, Clara insisted on preparing a simple supper with the provisions she found in his pantry, and as she moved quietly around his kitchen, Cole realized he had never seen such graceful purpose in a place that had always felt so empty. Over the next several days, Clara transformed the neglected garden behind the cabin, coaxing green shoots from the stubborn soil while Cole worked the cattle and stole glances that made his chest tighten in a way he didn't yet understand. The townsfolk of Red Creek whispered behind their hands about the scandalous arrangement, but Clara's quiet competence and the way she held her head high in the mercantile soon turned gossip into grudging admiration. One afternoon, Emmett appeared at the fence line reeking of cheap whiskey and cheap pride, demanding that Clara come back to him now that he had decided she might be worth his attention after all. Cole stepped between his brother and the woman who had become the steady heartbeat of his homestead, and with a voice like cold iron, he told Emmett to leave and never set foot on land that now belonged to a better man's promise. After Emmett's retreating figure disappeared beyond the ridge, Clara turned to Cole with tears glistening in her eyes and asked in a trembling whisper why he had sacrificed his own peace for someone he barely knew. Cole confessed that from the first moment he had seen her courage on that train platform, he understood that protecting her wasn't an obligation, but the most natural instinct his soul had ever produced. That night, under a canopy of endless stars, they spoke of their childhoods, their buried dreams, and the strange, winding paths that had led two lonely people to find unexpected refuge in each other's company. As the weeks melted into months, the rhythm of their shared labor forged a bond deeper than any courtship ritual could have engineered, because they had already weathered storms that tested the timber of their character. Cole began carving a small wooden ring from a fallen oak branch, hiding it in the barn and waiting for the right moment when the words building in his heart would no longer be contained by fear. On the first anniversary of her arrival, he led Clara to the creek where the water sang over smooth stones, and there he knelt on one knee to offer not a rescue, but a lifelong partnership rooted in unwavering respect. Clara's joyful cry scattered a pair of blue jays into the golden sky as she accepted the ring and pulled him to his feet, laughing and weeping all at once because the future she had once lost had been reborn in his steadfast eyes. Their wedding in the town chapel was a modest affair, attended by a few neighbors who had learned to love the quiet bride, and the cowboy who had defied convention to claim a love no one had predicted. Even the preacher remarked that he had never witnessed a union forged so plainly in the crucible of compassion, because the couple standing before him had already weathered the worst and chosen each other anyway. Years passed like chapters in a well-worn book, each season layering new stories onto the ranch that had grown, prosperous under their combined wisdom and tireless dedication to the land and to each other. Clara gave birth to a daughter whose laughter echoed through the canyons, and Cole, who had once felt destined to walk alone, now held a family that was the direct result of his brother's careless cruelty and his own quiet courage. Emmett drifted further into the margins of frontier life, forever haunted by the ghost of the woman he had discarded and the brother who had found gold where he had seen only dust. The old-timers at the general store would sometimes retell the story of how Cole Tanner salvaged a discarded mail-order bride and turned that single act of decency into a legacy that outshone any dime novel hero. Clara never forgot the sting of rejection, but she told anyone who asked that the deepest wounds can become the very gates through which a truer, fiercer love enters your life when you least expect it. In the quiet hour after supper, Cole would often sit on the porch with Clara beside him, watching the same sun that once witnessed her humiliation now paint their faces in hues of gratitude and unspoken contentment. The land they cultivated together became known not just for healthy cattle, but for the open door at the main house where any weary traveler could find a meal and a reminder that decency still thrived in the West. When their daughter asked about the day her parents met, Clara would smile softly and say that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept a stranger's kindness and build a kingdom from the ashes of a broken promise. Cole never considered himself a hero, only a man who recognized a rare treasure standing alone on a train platform and understood that walking away would have been the real failure of his life. The narrative of the rejected bride and the steady younger brother became a quiet legend whispered around campfires, reminding folks that honor isn't grand speeches, but small, costly decisions made when nobody is watching. Even the land seemed to bless their union, yielding crops in stubborn soil where others had failed, as if the very earth responded to the simple authenticity of two hearts beating in shared purpose. Clara taught their daughter to read from the same worn letters that had once promised her a future with a man who didn't want her, transforming that painful memory into a tool of empowerment and learning. Cole would sometimes catch Clara looking toward the distant train tracks with a pensive expression, but she always turned back to him with a smile that erased the shadows of that long-ago afternoon. Theirs was not a story of grand adventure, but of daily redemption, the kind that builds lasting homes upon the ruins of disappointment and proves that love is a verb far more than a fleeting sentiment. The ranch became a sanctuary for other women who had been misled by false matrimonial promises, a quiet mission born from Clara's own scars and Cole's unwavering support for her compassionate vision. Every board he nailed into the new guest cabin and every meal she prepared for the broken-spirited arrivals testified to a love that had overflowed its own banks and irrigated the lives of strangers. One evening, a young reporter from the Eastern papers arrived at their gate, expecting to find a sordid scandal, but instead discovering a household so ordinary in its devotion that he stayed 3 days just to understand it. The article he published spread their story far beyond the frontier, and letters poured in from readers who found hope in the idea that a discarded bride and a dutiful brother could weave such a durable happiness. Clara and Cole read those letters together by candlelight, marveling at how a moment of public humiliation had been redeemed into a universal testimony of compassion that transcended borders and backgrounds. When age finally slowed Cole's stride and silvered Clara's hair, they would still walk hand in hand to the creek, marveling at the same water that had witnessed the birth of their improbable romance. Their daughter, now a woman with her own family, would often recite the tale to her children, ensuring that the legacy of that single, courageous choice would outlive the weathered fence posts and stone chimney of the old home place. Cole passed away in the same bedroom where he had first dreamed of a life filled with more than cattle and solitude, his final breath drawn while Clara's hand rested gently against his time-worn cheek. Clara lived another 7 years, never remarrying, because she often told her granddaughter that she had already been granted more love in one quiet cowboy's heart than most souls find in a dozen lifetimes. The story of the rejected mail-order bride and the cowboy who took her home continues to echo through the generations, reminding modern listeners that true character reveals itself not in easy words, but in difficult, selfless actions. If you have been moved by this narrative of quiet bravery and frontier grace, then you understand why tales like this deserve to be shared with friends and family who need a dose of hope. Please take a moment right now to click the like button beneath this video, because every single thumbs up tells our team that you want more stories rooted in decency and authentic human connection. Subscribe to Stories Hub Official and ring the notification bell, so you never miss a weekly tale that uncovers the hidden courage and unexpected love stories scattered across the Old West. Your comments are the heartbeat of our community, and we genuinely want to know how Clara and Cole's journey touched your heart. So drop your thoughts below and let us read them together. Our dedicated team pours countless hours into crafting these narratives with care and respect. And your support through likes, shares, and subscriptions is what allows us to keep the lantern burning bright. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that second chances are real, that honor still walks the dusty roads of life, and that love can bloom where pride once trampled everything good. From all of us at Stories Hub Official, may your own journey be filled with the same steadfast courage that turned a moment of rejection into a lifetime of cherished belonging under wide and forgiving skies.